going on, guys? Welcome back to the Broad Street Boys, and today we're going to talk about a whole lot of things. We're going to start off with a little bit of the Eagles' free agency news and the lack of it, but at the same time, the people that we might be targeting. That'll be a short little beginning, and then I'm going to go off this one discussion question. And the question is, let's all just hear it, chew on it, think about it as I talk about the Eagles real quick. But the question is, who has a better chance in 2026 or 27 to win a championship, the Eagles or the Phillies? Think about it. Just give me your answer either in the comments or even think about it. Give me a second. I'm going to go over the Eagles free agency right now. But yeah, very interesting free agency so far for the Eagles. I think we all thought we would be a little more aggressive in some things. I did see that we were kind of in the running for Trey Hendrickson, but then Hendrickson was signed by the Baltimore Ravens after the Max Crosby debacle that I've never even seen a scenario like that in my entire life. I'm gonna be told that is one of the most shocking things I've seen. If you really think about it, like the Ravens didn't really lose out a whole lot. I mean, is Max Crosby better than Trey Hendrickson? Like, yes, but at the same time, they also keep their two picks and get a player just a little bit less productive as Max Crosby. Or the whole situation is so odd. Like the fact that he failed his physical and was obviously body related. I guess that's a good way to describe it. But he was hurt. But at the same time, he came out of absolutely nowhere last night for the time that I'm recording this. But I just what am I even watching? But that was crazy. Max Crosby was a name that I thought the Eagles would be a little more aggressive on as well. I know Howie Roseman, and Howie Roseman does not love giving up first-round picks. And then the Ravens offered two, so then they obviously beat him out. Now, what I will say this right now, I would take Max Crosby for a first and a second. I'll do that, sure. Because he really is that good, and he could change this defense in such a big way. And that would be awesome. He would be so good here. But we'll see what happens with that, because we would all, I'm 80% sure we'd probably have to extend him as well. Or at least we would probably do it. I don't think we have to, but I think we would do it. But that would be nice. Someone that we did get, though, was Reek Woolen, who from the Seattle Seahawks, who just won the championship. I really like the move. A 1 year, $15 million. I feel like that's really good value, especially with. So Tariq Woolen is his full name. So I'm just going to reference him as both Reek and Tariq. But Tariq Woolen is a really good talent. He's a taller corner that's super fast, had a ridiculous combine time, and only slid in the draft a few years ago because of his, lack of snaps in college. But then he tore it up in the combine, and now he's up, and he is a freak. An absolute I'm 80% sure he's 6'3", 6'4", and he ran a 4.2. That's disgusting. But yeah, so I was doing a little bit of research and watching some videos about his highlights, his lowlights, and all that. The only issue with him is that he's a corner that kind of takes a lot of chances. I see him as a better version right now of a Trayvon Diggs. Trayvon Diggs gets bombed on a lot, but at the same time, he also picks people off all the time. And that's kind of what he was known for. I mean, obviously not as much anymore, but when he was in his prime, that's kind of what you're going to get with Tariq Woolen. But at the same time, with myself saying this, is he better than Dory Jackson? Yes. Is he better than any cornerback that we had all year last year? Yes. Or even a few years ago too, as a cornerback too? Yes. I think he's better than Isaiah Rodgers in our Super Bowl year, but I guess only time will tell. But I really like that addition. I really do. I think he's going to be really good, especially as a two, because you had him and Witherspoon on the Seahawks and Emmanwori all in there. But it's funny, Emmanwori would be more of like a Cooper DeJean slot, where he would play a lot of nickel. And he'd kind of be like the slot, but then he could also play safety as well. And then Maury. But yeah, I really like the Reek Woolen pickup. I think it's great value. The only issue I have, I think, is two things, actually. Two issues. Number one is that, again, he gets Puka Nacua used cooked him. The amount of lowlights of Tariq Woolen I saw, and Puka Nacua absolutely cooked him. But it's also Puka Nacua, I guess, but he takes a lot of chances. That's one of his issues. He takes a lot of chances, which is okay. That's fine. You kind of want that out of a corner, but not too many chances. But then the other thing is character issues is the wrong word. but I think that he just didn't fit the McDonald's system, so I guess that's why they let him go. But also, he is kind of a hothead. But I feel like you also kind of want that out of a defensive player, especially a corner. So he kind of gives me CJ GJ vibes, maybe on a lower extent. But I wonder how the locker room fit is going to be. That's my other concern. I wonder how that's going to be. But it's not like they haven't dealt with that before because CJ GJ has been on this team before, and I love CJ, but that's just the way it is. But yeah, those are just my two issues. But he is an absolute physical freak. He's so fast. He has a ton of interceptions. And yeah, so I actually like it. And on a 1 year deal, I feel like if he does have character issues or whatever you want to call it, then we could just let him go, which is great. So that's what I have on Rick Woolen. We have not picked up anybody else. We've just lost everybody. Everybody that I've talked about in our free agency preview that I talked about, like all of them are gone or are unsigned, other than Dallas Goedert. That's the only one. And if you remember from the last one, I didn't exactly want Dallas Goedert back, and I wanted us to get a blocking tight end and Kenyon Sadiq, which by the way we've already done, getting Johnny Munn, which is very exciting. That's already kind of falling into my plan, but Munn is a more of a blocking tight end, which I actually like. It also adds some good depth as well, especially because we don't have Calcaterra at all right now. So it'll be interesting to see if they do anything on the tight end spot leading up to the draft. If they get Goddard back, or if they just stand pat. Because if they just stand pat, then they're either going to trade up for Sadiq or like at least like sit there and feel the vibe to get Sadiq. Because I think, or at least that's what I hope they do. But yeah, so Dallas Goedert is the only one that has been unsigned. Everybody else is gone. Like Reed Blankenship is on the Texans, Nakobe Dean's on the Raiders, Jalen Phillips is on the Panthers. I will say about Phillips though, they give him a lot of money. I think it was $30 million a year, or something like ridiculous. Well, yeah, $30 million a year. I think it was 4 years for 120 mil. That's a lot of money. I'm actually happy we didn't pay him for that much. I would imagine that we made him an offer, but it was something below that, and I don't blame him for taking the bigger money for a team that actually was a playoff team last year. So I don't actually blame Jalen Phillips in the slightest. But yeah, so that was one interesting free agency so far. It's for the Eagles. It's been a little quiet, but at the same time, like I was on the party that I was kind of thinking like, oh my gosh, we're letting all these guys go, like awful, I'm annoyed. But at the same time, two things: trust in Howie Roseman. I have to trust. Number two, there was a ton of overpays, for players that are good, but they're not that good. Like, why is Alec Pierce the highest paid wide receiver in free agency history? that makes no sense. Alec Pierce is good. I will admit that right now. But in history, I'm good. But like it's like little things like that. Like people are being paid a lot of money and they're good and they're not like AJ Brown. But yeah, so that's been the free agency so far. Now I am recording this. I'm going to say that I like saying this for ongoing things, but I'm recording this on Wednesday at 7:30. If anything happens during this, don't hate me. But so okay. Next is the question that I proposed to you earlier. Who do you think will have a better chance to win a championship in 2026, the Eagles or the Phillies? I'm going to give you my answer last. And I'm going to give you the options for both these teams. I'm going to go back and forth. So for the Eagles have something going for them in that they've done it before. Yes, the coaches are kind of different. Like Kellen Moore is gone. Kevin Patullo, as much as people want to hate him, he was on that staff. It did have an impact, in my opinion. He's gone. We have a brand new offensive coordinator this year, so we'll see. Next is something interesting to also mention. Like the Phillies, obviously they haven't done it yet, but they've been there and they've been in situations. So they also have that going for them, or at least a lot of their roster has. The only thing with the Phillies is that they're kind of aging. I'm watching the World Baseball Classic, and obviously I'm not ready to call Bryce Harper not elite because he is elite, and I'm not. The people on Twitter calling Bryce Harper not elite, I think, are not very smart. Why would you say that about a person, right? In March, it's essentially like calling somebody not elite for not doing very well in spring training. Yes, the World Baseball Classic is on a higher level than spring training, obviously, but at the same time, why are we going to judge these guys differently when they've had absolutely no time to ramp up? But at the same time, if he didn't do the World Baseball Classic, we would be saying nothing. So why are we penalizing them for doing the World Baseball Classic. That's how I feel about Bryce Harper. I'm not ready to call him not elite yet. That is out of the cards. However, has he struggled a little bit in the World Baseball Classic? Sure, you can say that. Fine. But at the same time, yes, they're aging, but they're also in their prime, which is something that the I think the Phillies have a little more kind of an edge on the Eagles. Because if you think about the Eagles, right, they do have people in their prime. Like Jalen Hurts should be in his prime right now. Is in his prime. AJ, which I'll get to, but he's currently in his prime. If he stays on this team, it's a big if. But if he stays on this team, at the same time, our defense is very young still. Like it's funny. Like I feel like I've been saying that this defense is young since our Super Bowl year, but this defense is still young. So these guys are not at their peak yet. The Phillies, majority of them are either at their peak or are coming down a little bit. Hopefully, Kyle Schwarber isn't coming down. He did hit a moonshot in the second game of the World Baseball Classic. Hasn't done a whole lot since that. It's kind of cooled off. He literally went, what was it, 4 for 6 initially, and you were like, oh my god, he's hitting 700 or like 600. Like it's like nasty. But yeah, so that's something that I guess they're kind of different. Phillies more in their prime, Eagles less so. But then, yeah, again, like I said, Eagles have a few more young guys, especially young solidified players, if I would say. Think about just like their young core. That's how I'm going to describe it. They have a better young core than the Phillies, and I will admit that to your face right now. The Eagles have Quinion Mitchell, Cooper DeJean, Jalen Carter, Jordan Davis was just signed, Jahad Campbell you can even put in there, but they have guys like that on the defense that adds a great young core if you could retain a majority of them, if not all of them. And then on the offensive side, not a whole lot of youth, I would say, but more guys in their prime. Yeah, other than I wouldn't call Mailata super young anymore. Same with Dickerson, obviously, but not a whole lot of youth on that side. But on the defensive side, that young core is nasty compared to the Phillies, where they're more in their prime, right? But I'm not going to sit here and lie to you and say that Bryson Stott and Alec Bohm and Brandon Marshall are young anymore. Like they're just not. However, I will say I like how the young guys are playing in spring training. The bats cooled down a little bit for Justin Crawford, but he's still making plays. Justin Crawford, his biggest thing was he going to be able to track balls in center field, not his natural position, and it looks like he is. And we know what the bat looks like, which is really all that I really care about. I'm not gonna lie, I am 99.9% sure that Justin Crawford is going to make the opening day squad. But however, I will say that I'm not loving the Aiden Miller kind of injury. I wish that we kind of at least got to see him. I guess that's a way. Like I wish I got to see him in spring training, but we didn't even get that. And I would assume that he's not going to play there because I just saw a thing that he's actually being looked at in Philadelphia, which definitely means that they're just going to say, okay, scrap spring training, let's just get you right. I believe it's something with his lower body as well. I forget if it's his ankle or his foot or something down there. But I don't love that he's hurt, and that's a part of the young core. However, I will say I'm excited to see what Andrew Painter's got. He's pitched pretty well in spring training, a lot more contact than I think we're used to. But I feel like you could actually see it in the World Baseball Classic. The velocity is definitely down, especially in March. I'm not to rant about it again, but to judge people in March and to call them not elite is stupid. It actually annoys me. Like Painter only has 97, 98, or maybe even 96, 97, which is fine for March because that'll just ramp up even more. I would assume that he's going to make the opening day roster and then be our fifth starter. So that's exciting, I guess, or fourth or fifth starter. That'll be fun. But he's a part of that young core, and yeah, so it's those three, honestly. And there's probably people leaving out. I've actually, adding on to that, I actually have liked what I've seen from Dante Nori. He's really not going to start on the opening day roster, and he might even be in. You know what? I think he'll be in AAA. But I actually really like what I've seen in the World Baseball Classic, and I like that he's getting like big league reps almost, and he's working counts, which I really appreciate. So that's kind of like the young core for both those teams. However, my next point might be the biggest discrepancy, and that's the GM/president of ops. You got Howie, who's a little more aggressive and a little more twitchy, if that makes sense. And he's not afraid to go out and trade people and trade assets to grab a really good asset, if that makes sense. Like, he's really not afraid. I'm not saying Dave Dombrowski is afraid. I'm just saying Howie's just done it a little more than Dombrowski mid-season. Yeah, and I think coaching is also something that I think this is probably the biggest difference between the teams. It's actually not the GM slash president of ops. I think it's actually more the actual like head coaches. Nick Sirianni is he's not on the hot seat. I'm not saying Nick Sirianni's on the hot seat now. But at the same time, I really think that if Sirianni does not have a good year again this year, or if it looks like last year, I think he might be on the hot seat for next year. In comparison to Rob Thompson, who I feel like is a great coach, and I really like all like his supporting cast of coaches as well. Kevin Long's a little questionable because you kind of just want to see more progression, but at the same time, he's worked with Harper and Shoreham. They've both got better up to this point. And then at the same time, of course, for the Eagles, you have Vic Fangio. I mean, Vic Fangio is at the top of that. But at the same time, the head coach, and we have a brand new offensive coordinator as well, compared to Thompson, Long, and then Caleb Coughlin, who I feel like is not talked about enough around here. But I feel like he was a major part in not Jesus Sanchez, jeez, Jesus Lizardo's progression, and I think a giant reason on why he's coming back, or not coming back, but extended. Because I think Caleb Coughlin worked with him really well, and with a bunch of players as well. I feel like he's kind of like the guy that no one really talks about for in like on the Phillies coaching staff. But you like everybody knows he's there, but I don't think people know his true. I guess impact is the right word, but I think his impact is huge because I've just like progression out of a bunch of these players, and I feel like he also helped Ranger as well. Um, Now, the two things that these teams that actually do have in common is that their divisions are hard. Um, the NFC is a little less last year, obviously, but at the same time, the NFC is so up and down. Like it will literally go from the worst division in all of football in what was that 2019 when the Eagles made with a 8-8 record or something like that, or like an 8-9 record. Who knows? But it was that year with Carson Wentz. But then all of a sudden, like they'll have to win 12 or 13 games to win the division because the Cowboys are hot, or like the Commanders are good too. So we'll see about that. And I feel like the Giants might not be bad too if they get healthy. So it's a very up and down division compared to the the NL East, which last year was kind of a down year. They only had one team representing that was the Phillies, but this year I think it's going to be good. The Braves are healthy. The Mets are also healthy, and the Mets, but at the same time, the Mets will probably be the Mets. But the Marlins can be sneaky as well, and the Nationals are Nationals. Um, but I just think the Phillies this year just have such a tough division. And same with the NFC East as well for the Eagles. Um, and I think something else that needs to be talked about as well. This is the second to last thing I'll talk about before I give you my answer. But I think this is the most, I guess, impactful point that I have. So I'll start with the Phillies with this. But the Phillies need to be hot to be successful in the playoffs. Just we've obviously seen it. Like we haven't made it out. We've only had one series for the past 3 years now, which is no 2 years. That's no, yeah, 2 years. Sorry, 2 years. Mets and Dodgers. Um, but yeah, we've only had one series, and that was when the bats went cold, and you can't really rely on pitching as much. Like you need to hit. Like you can't just score 2 runs and feel good about yourself all the time. Like you need to get like 3 or 4 runs to have a solidified lead. Compared to the Eagles, who can lean on their defense a little more. Obviously, I am a Jalen Hurts fan. I think he's a top 13 quarterback, maybe being 12 or 13. And I'm not going to sit here and say that he didn't have a massive impact on the Eagles winning the Super Bowl. And I think he had actually a bigger impact than what people think. However, this defense is so good that they could almost lean on the defense. I feel like the defense has a little more impact as well in football compared to like pitching in baseball, especially in the playoffs. Because I feel like you'll never like. I feel like the most successful teams that win the Super Bowl have a dominant defense, or at least an above average defense. But at the same time, but like with a pretty good offense to an amazing offense. And I feel like it's a little different for baseball because you need to be both good at pitching and hitting, and you need to be hot. And that at the same time, that's just kind of baseball. I also think it's a little harder to win a championship in baseball just because there's series. It's like imagine the Eagles just like found something week to week, like they'll just win. Compared to the Phillies where they'll find something for one game and hope that it works for the next game and then they'll lose. So that's interesting as well. And the last thing I'm going to talk about is so obviously I'm probably leaning towards the Eagles at this point. However, we're going to talk about AJ Brown. AJ Brown, the impact that he has on this question, I think is huge because AJ Brown is so good. But at the same time, like, is he going to be a cancer in the locker room if we keep him? Like, it's just the impact of AJ Brown that I hesitate to go all in on the Eagles on this question on who can win a championship in 2026. So that's going to be something I'm not going to talk about it too much, but I feel like everybody's so sick of talking about AJ Brown. I feel like AJ is probably sick of it too. I'm sorry, AJ. But for real though, like his impact is huge. Whether he's engaged or not engaged, I think his impact's huge. But for the answer for me on who has the better chance to win a championship in 2026, I think it's actually so hard. It really is. Think I see. I'm like going back and forth all of a sudden. I was gonna say the Eagles. I really was. Just because it's a little easier. You don't have to play series wise, but at the same time, this team was so disjointed last year, and we have a brand new offensive coordinator. So you know what? I'm gonna go to the Phillies. I think the Phillies have a fantastic shot. I think they're gonna win the NL East again. And even if they don't and they make the wild card game, then we can get hot and then play like the Braves or like the Dodgers, and let's get hot. I think it's gonna be the Phillies. This team, its window is shrinking, and it's shrinking faster than the Eagles. I think that's my main answer to this question, because the Phillies only have about a year or two left in like their true window. Until you're gonna start seeing regression in Harper and Turner. I think first. Schwarber, I don't know how much of a regression you're gonna see. I think I heard WIP talk about this, but Schwarber he's like on pace to being like another David Ortiz. Obviously, I'm not comparing him to David Ortiz. Like that's no one really can. But I only say that because he's almost getting better with age. Actually, he's not almost. He is getting better with age. His batting average is getting better with age, and he's hitting more home runs. How does it make any sense? You're what, 33, 32, 33? So, like, I think it's the Phillies, but I think it needs to happen this year or next year. Or at the same time, I need to see a little more progression from the young guys. But yeah, that's my answer. I think it's the Phillies. Yeah, thank you all. I think that's going to be it for the episode. It's been a weird week in Philadelphia sports. I can almost pick any team to talk about. Like, I don't want to talk about the Sixers. I can tell you that. Because that team just makes me sad. I'm not even angry anymore. I'm just sad. The Flyers are all of a sudden getting a little hot. They just lost the Rangers the other night. But like, there's a lot going on, but at the same time, not anything really significant. But I will say, before I end it out here, be on the lookout next week for a full March Madness breakdown. I'm going to try to get my friends on. Worst case is just me talking college basketball, but if you're into that, please tune in to the next one. I know I talked about this in my last one, but it's like one of my favorite episodes to record outside of like the season previews or like the playoff previews. But yes, thank you all so much for listening or watching to me today on YouTube or Spotify. Check me out there. At the same time, Broad Street Boys on Instagram, TikTok, X. Yeah, I will see you in the next one. Talking March Madness. It's like the greatest time of the year. I love March. March sports are fantastic. That's all. That's what I'm going to finish with. March sports are amazing. All right. I'll see you in the next one. Go Birds.